The church bells tolled like a death knell. But Ethan Carter wasn't dead. Not yet. He stood in the shadows of Street Mary's parking lot, clutching a worn manila envelope, his heart pounding louder than the organ inside. It was a crisp October morning in Asheville, North Carolina, and the air smelled of damp leaves and betrayal. Ethan, 25, hadn't set foot in this town in 5 years, not since his family disowned him for being gay. Not since his father's fist left a bruise that faded slower than the words that followed. "You're no son of mine." Now, they'd gone further. They'd declared him dead. A funeral, complete with a casket and eulogies, was unfolding inside that church, mourning a man who was very much alive. Ethan's fingers trembled as he gripped the envelope, his receipts. Inside were letters, text messages, and photos, proof of the life he'd built despite their rejection. He'd come to crash his own funeral, to show them he was more than their shame. Beside him stood Lucas, his partner, whose steady hand on Ethan's shoulder was the only thing keeping him from bolting. "You don't have to do this," Lucas whispered, his voice soft but firm. At 26, Lucas was Ethan's anchor blonde, broad-shouldered, with eyes that held a quiet courage. "You owe them nothing." Ethan shook his head, his dark hair falling into his eyes. "I owe myself this." He wasn't here for their forgiveness. He was here to reclaim his name. 5 years ago, Ethan had been a college sophomore, naive and hopeful, when he came out to his parents. His father, Pastor John Carter, led a conservative congregation in Asheville, where family values were gospel and deviation was sin. Ethan's confession shattered their world. His mother, Ellen, wept silently. His father roared. His older sister, Sarah, just stared, her silence cutting deeper than words. Within hours, Ethan was out of the house, his belongings in a duffel bag, his name erased from their lives. He'd survived on sheer stubbornness, moving to Charlotte, working odd jobs, and piecing together a life. Then he met Lucas at a coffee shop, where a spilled latte turned into a conversation, then a date, then a love that felt like home. Lucas, a graphic designer with a knack for seeing beauty in broken things, had helped Ethan heal. But the scars remained. And when Ethan got the call from an old high school friend, "Dude, they're holding your funeral," those scars burned anew. The church doors loomed ahead, white paint peeling like the facade of his family's love. Ethan's pulse raced as he imagined the scene inside, his father's somber voice, his mother's crocodile tears, Sarah's practiced grief. They'd turned his existence into a cautionary tale, a sermon prop. But Ethan wasn't a ghost. He was flesh and blood, and he was done being invisible. Lucas squeezed his hand. "Whatever happens, I'm right here." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He took a step forward, then another, the envelope heavy in his hand. The doors creaked open, and the organ's drone filled the air. Heads turned as he stepped into the sanctuary, a living specter in a room of mourners. Gasps rippled through the pews. His mother's hand flew to her mouth. His father froze mid-sentence at the pulpit. "Ethan." Sarah's voice cracked, her eyes wide with disbelief. He held up the envelope, his voice steady despite the storm inside. "You buried me. Now let's talk about why I'm still here." The congregation stared, a mix of shock and curiosity. Ethan's father, face red with fury, stepped down from the pulpit. "This is a house of God. Boy, you've got no place here." "I'm not your boy anymore," Ethan said, his voice cutting through the silence. "But I'm still your son. And I've got proof you can't bury." He opened the envelope, pulling out a letter he'd written to his mother at 19, begging for her love. It had been returned unopened. He held up a photo of him and Lucas at Pride, smiling under a rainbow flag. He read a text from Sarah, Sent years ago, don't come back. You're dead to us. Each piece was a brick in the wall they'd built to shut him out. And now he was tearing it down. The room was a powder keg. Some congregants shifted uncomfortably. Others whispered. Ethan's mother sobbed, but her tears felt hollow. His father's fists clenched, but Ethan didn't flinch. He'd spent years afraid of this man. Not anymore. Lucas stood beside him, a silent pillar. Ethan's voice grew stronger. You told everyone I was dead because I'm gay. But I'm alive. I'm happy. And I'm here to make sure you never forget it. The organ had stopped. The air was thick with tension. Ethan's father opened his mouth. But before he could speak, Sarah stood. Ethan. She faltered, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know it would come to this. Ethan's heart twisted. Sarah had been his best friend once, his confidant. But she'd chosen their parents' side. He wanted to scream, to beg her to see him, but he held back. This wasn't about her regret. It was about his truth. I'm not here to forgive you, Ethan said, his gaze sweeping the room. I'm here to live. And I'll do it louder than your lies. He turned to leave, Lucas at his side. The congregation parted like a sea, some faces hostile, others softened with something like shame. As they reached the doors, Ethan felt a weight lift. He wasn't free not yet, but he'd taken back something they'd stolen, his voice. Outside, the autumn air was sharp, cleansing. Lucas pulled him close. You were incredible. Ethan exhaled, shaky but whole. I just wanted them to see me. They did, Lucas said, kissing his forehead. And so will everyone else. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, Ethan felt alive. Not just surviving, but living. And that was a start. The streets of Asheville blurred past as Ethan and Lucas drove away from Street Mary's, the church's steeple shrinking in the rearview mirror. Ethan's hand still shook, the envelope now crumpled on his lap. He'd done it, walked into his own funeral and faced the family that had buried him alive, but the adrenaline was fading, leaving a hollow ache. Lucas glanced over, his blue eyes soft with concern. You okay? Ethan forced a smile. I don't know what I am. He looked out the window at the Blue Ridge Mountains, their peaks dusted with early frost. Asheville was beautiful, but it felt like a cage he'd barely escaped. Returning had ripped open wounds he'd thought were healed. They pulled into a diner on the edge of town, a retro spot with neon signs and checkered floors. Inside, the smell of coffee and bacon grounded Ethan, pulling him back to the present. They slid into a booth, and Lucas ordered pancakes for them both, knowing Ethan hadn't eaten all day. Talk to me, Lucas said, leaning forward. What's going on in that head of yours? Ethan traced the edge of the envelope, its contents still heavy in his mind. I thought I'd feel done, like I'd won. But seeing the me mom crying, Sarah breaking down, it didn't fix anything. It just hurt. Lucas reached across the table, his hand warm over Ethan's. You didn't do it to fix them. You did it to stand up for yourself. That's enough. Ethan wanted to believe him, but the memories clawed at him. Growing up, he'd been the golden boy straight A student, choir leader, his father's pride. Coming out had shattered that illusion. He could still hear his father's voice, you're choosing sin over family. His mother's silence had been worse, her eyes avoiding his as if he were already gone. The waitress brought their pancakes, and Ethan pushed his plate away, appetite gone. They didn't even apologize, he said. Not one of them. Lucas's jaw tightened. They don't get to decide your worth, Ethan. You showed them you're stronger than their hate. Ethan nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Had he been strong, or just reckless? The congregation's faces some shocked, Some angry flashed in his mind. He'd wanted them to see him. But what if all they saw was a scandal? His phone buzzed, breaking his thoughts. A text from an unknown number. Ethan, it's Sarah. Can we talk? His stomach dropped. He showed Lucas the screen. What do you want to do? Lucas asked. Nothing. Ethan said too quickly. She doesn't get to waltz back in now. But as the day wore on, Sarah's message lingered. They drove to a cheap motel to spend the night, too drained to make the 3-hour trip back to Charlotte. In the dim room, Ethan lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Lucas sat beside him, sketching on his tableta habit that calmed them both. Sarah was the one who told me to leave, Ethan said, breaking the silence. She was 22. I was 19. She said it was for my own good, like she was protecting me from Dad. But it felt like she was protecting herself. Lucas set his tablet down. Maybe she's regretting it now. Too late for that. Ethan's voice was sharp, but his chest ached. Sarah had been his ally once, sneaking him comic books when their parents banned them, covering for him when he missed curfew. Losing her had hurt almost as much as losing his parents. Lucas lay down beside him, their shoulders touching. You don't have to decide tonight. Just don't close the door completely. Not for her sake, but for yours. Ethan turned to him, their faces close. Lucas's steady presence was a lifeline. Always had been. How do you do it? Ethan asked. Stay so calm when I'm a mess. Lucas smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Ethan's forehead. Because I see you. All of you. And I love every piece. Ethan kissed him, slow and deep, letting the warmth of it push back the cold. For a moment, the world was just them two men building a life against the odds. But Sarah's text lingered, a crack in the armor he'd built. The next morning, Ethan woke to a voicemail from his high school friend, Mia, who'd tipped him off about the funeral. Ethan, it's blowing up online. Someone recorded you at the church. People are talking. He opened his phone and found a video on X. Shaky footage of him standing in the sanctuary, holding up his receipts. The caption read, Man crashes his own funeral after family disowns him for being gay. Comments ranged from support to vitriol, some calling him brave, others a sinner. His heart sank. This wasn't what he'd wanted. Lucas scrolled through the posts, his expression darkening. This could get messy. You want me to handle it? No, Ethan said, his voice firm. I started this. I'll deal with it. He typed a response on X. I'm not a hero or a villain. I'm just a guy who wanted his family to see him. Thanks for the support. But this is my story to tell. He hit post, his hand steady now. By noon, they were back on the road, heading to Charlotte. Ethan's phone buzzed again, another text from Sarah. I'm in Charlotte tomorrow. Please, just 5 minutes. He didn't reply, but he didn't delete it either. As they drove, Lucas turned on the radio, a soft indie song filling the car. Ethan leaned his head against the window, the mountains fading behind them. He'd faced his past, but it wasn't done with him yet. Sarah's plea, the viral video, the weight of his family's rejection, it was all a storm he'd have to navigate. But with Lucas beside him, he felt ready to fight. Charlotte's skyline glowed under the late afternoon sun as Ethan and Lucas pulled into their apartment complex. The city felt like a refuge, its bustle a stark contrast to Asheville's suffocating quiet. But even here, Ethan couldn't escape the weight of his phone, buzzing with notifications about the viral video. Inside their small apartment, Ethan dropped onto the couch, the envelope of receipts now a permanent fixture in his hands. Lucas started dinner spaghetti, their comfort food, while Ethan scrolled through X. The video had thousands of shares, and messages poured in. Some strangers offered support, others spewed hate. One comment stung. He's just attention-seeking. Should have stayed gone. Lucas glanced over from the kitchen. You're spiraling. Put the phone down. Ethan sighed but complied, tossing it onto the coffee table. It's just, I didn't expect this to become a circus. It's the internet, Lucas said, stirring sauce. People make everything a circus. But you controlled the narrative with your post. That's what matters. Ethan nodded, but his thoughts drifted to Sarah's text. She'd be in Charlotte tomorrow. Part of him wanted to ignore her, to let the past stay buried. But another part, the part that remembered her sneaking him ice cream after a bad day, couldn't let go. Dinner was quiet. The clink of forks against plates the only sound. Lucas broke the silence. You're thinking about Sarah, aren't you? Ethan pushed his food around. She was my sister. Lucas. We were close. Then she just turned her back. Lucas set his fork down. People make mistakes. Sometimes they get a chance to fix them. Doesn't mean you have to give her one. But think about what you need. Ethan didn't answer. After dinner, he retreated to their balcony. The city lights a comforting hum below. He pulled out the envelope, sifting through its contents. A photo caught his eye, him and Sarah at 10 and 13, grinning at a county fair, cotton candy smeared on their faces. He'd forgotten how much he missed her. The next morning, Ethan agreed to meet Sarah at a coffee shop downtown. Lucas offered to come, but Ethan shook his head. I need to do this alone. The coffee shop was crowded, the air thick with espresso and chatter. Sarah was already there, sitting in a corner, her auburn hair pulled back, her face pale. She looked older than 28, the weight of guilt etched in her eyes. Ethan, she said, standing as he approached. Thank you for coming. He sat, his posture stiff. 5 minutes. Say what you need to say. Sarah's hands twisted around her coffee cup. I'm sorry. For everything. For what I said. For not stopping them. For the funeral. I didn't know they'd go that far. Ethan's jaw tightened. You told me I was dead to you. You don't get to apologize now just because I showed up. Tears welled in her eyes. I was scared. Ethan. Dad was so angry. And Mom just shut down. I thought if I went along with them, it'd be easier for everyone. Easier for you. Ethan snapped. I was on the streets. Sarah. I had nothing. She flinched. I know. And I hate myself for it. I want to make it right. How? Ethan's voice was low. Dangerous. You can't undo 5 years. You can't undo them telling the world I'm dead. Sarah reached into her bag, pulling out a small notebook. This is yours. I kept it after you left. Your poems. Your sketches. I read them every day. Ethan stared at the notebook, his teenage scrawl visible on the cover. He'd poured his heart into those pages, his fears, his dreams, his first crush on a boy in math class. He didn't take it. Why now? Sarah. Because I'm on the internet. Because you're embarrassed. No, she said, her voice breaking. Because I miss my brother. And I'm done being a coward. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to believe her, but trust was a fragile thing, and his was shattered. I need time, he said finally. This doesn't fix anything. Sarah nodded, tears falling. I'll wait. However long it takes. He left the coffee shop, the notebook still on the table. Outside, the city pulsed with life, but Ethan felt untethered. He called Lucas, who picked him up in their beat-up sedan. How'd it go? Lucas asked, his voice gentle. Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes. She's sorry. But I don't know if I can forgive her. Lucas didn't push, just drove. His presence enough. That night, Ethan posted on X again, "Met my sister today. She wants forgiveness. I'm not ready. But I'm still here. Still fighting." The responses flooded in. Some kind, some cruel. But Ethan didn't read them. He was done letting strangers define him. The next day, a local LGBTQ+ center reached out, offering Ethan a chance to speak at their annual gala. They'd seen the video, heard his story. "You're an inspiration," their email said. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't a hero, just a guy trying to survive. But Lucas convinced him. "Your story matters. Tell it." As Ethan prepared for the gala, Sarah texted again, "I'm proud of you. I'll be there if you let me." He didn't reply, but the words stayed with him. A flicker of hope in the dark. The gala was held in a sleek Charlotte event hall, its walls draped in rainbow flags and fairy lights. Ethan stood backstage, his palms sweaty, the envelope of receipts tucked into his jacket. He'd agreed to speak, but the weight of 100 eyes waiting beyond the curtain made his stomach churn. Lucas adjusted Ethan's tie, his fingers steady. "You've got this," he said. "Just tell your truth. That's all they need." Ethan nodded, but his mind raced. The video of his funeral crash had spread further, sparking debates online and in local news. Some called him a trailblazer, others, a troublemaker. He didn't feel like either, just a 25-year-old trying to make sense of his pain. The MC introduced him, and the crowd applauded. Ethan stepped onto the stage, the spotlight blinding. He saw faces young, old, queer, allies all waiting for his words. He took a breath, his voice steady but raw. 5 years ago, my family told me I was nothing because I'm gay. He began. Last week, they held a funeral for me. I wasn't dead, but they wanted me to be. The room was silent, every word landing like a stone. Ethan told his story is coming out. His father's rage, his mother's silence, Sarah's betrayal. He held up the envelope, its contents now a symbol of his resilience. "These are my receipts," he said. "Proof I'm still here, still fighting, still loving." He spoke of Lucas, the man who'd shown him love was possible. He spoke of the kids like him, hiding who they are, afraid of losing everything. "You are enough," he said, his voice breaking. "Don't let anyone bury you before you're gone." The crowd erupted in applause, some standing, some crying. Ethan felt exposed but alive, his truth laid bare. As he left the stage, Lucas pulled him into a hug. "You were incredible." Backstage, Ethan spotted Sarah in the crowd. She'd come, despite his silence. Her eyes were red, her expression raw. He didn't approach her, but her presence stirred something anger. Yes, but also a longing for the sister he'd lost. The gala continued with music and speeches, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere. He and Lucas slipped out to the balcony, the city skyline glittering below. "I saw her," Ethan said. "Sarah. She was there." Lucas nodded. "What do you want to do about it?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "Part of me wants to let her back in. Part of me wants to keep her out forever." Lucas squeezed his hand. "You don't have to decide tonight. You've already done the hard part." The next day, Ethan's speech was all over X. Clips shared with hashtags like Ethan Lives and Queer Resilience. Support poured in, but so did hate. A local church group, his father's allies, posted a video condemning him, calling his actions a mockery of God's will. Ethan's heart sank, but he refused to hide. He posted, "I spoke my truth. Hate me if you want. I'm still here." Sarah texted again, "Your speech was beautiful. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. Can we try again?" Ethan stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He wanted to believe she'd changed, but trust was a bridge burned to ash. Over the next week, Ethan threw himself into work at the community center, where he'd started volunteering. He mentored queer teens, their stories echoing his own rejection, fear, but also hope. One kid, a 16-year-old named Jamie, reminded Ethan of himself, quiet, guarded, but fiercely determined. "My parents don't know I'm trans," Jamie said. "I'm scared they'll kick me out." Ethan listened, his heart aching. "You're not alone," he told Jamie. "And you're stronger than you know." Helping others grounded Ethan, but Sarah's messages kept coming. She sent photos of their old treehouse, a place they'd spent hours as kids. "Remember this," she wrote. "I want to remember us." Ethan showed Lucas the texts. "She's trying," Lucas said. "Maybe she deserves a chance. Not for her, but for you." Ethan wasn't sure. But when Sarah asked to meet again, he agreed, this time at their apartment. He wanted her on his turf, where he felt safe. As the day approached, Ethan's nerves frayed. Could he forgive her? Did he even want to? The doorbell rang, and Ethan's heart raced. Lucas squeezed his shoulder. "You've got this." Ethan opened the door, and there was Sarah, holding the notebook from their last meeting. Her eyes were hopeful, but cautious. "Hi," she said softly. "Can I come in?" Sarah stepped into the apartment, her movements hesitant, as if she were walking on glass. Ethan stood by the couch, arms crossed, the envelope of receipts on the coffee table like a silent witness. Lucas offered her water, his politeness a buffer for Ethan's tension. "Thanks for letting me come," Sarah said, sitting stiffly. She set the notebook on the table, its worn cover a relic of their shared past. "I know I don't deserve this." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You don't. So why are you here?" Sarah's eyes glistened. "Because I want my brother back. I was wrong, Ethan. I was weak. I let Dad control me, and I hurt you." Ethan wanted to lash out, to make her feel the weight of those years alone. But her voice, raw, broken, stirred something. "You didn't just hurt me," he said. "You let them erase me. You helped them." Sarah nodded, tears falling. "I know. I was 22, scared of losing them too. I thought if I followed their rules, I'd keep the family together. But I lost you instead." Lucas sat beside Ethan, his presence steadying. Ethan took a breath. "Why the funeral, Sarah? Why go that far?" She looked away, shame coloring her face. "It was Dad's idea. He said it was symbolic, a way to mourn the son we lost to sin. Mom went along with it. I didn't stop them." Ethan's hands clenched. "You stood there while they buried an empty casket. You let them tell the world I was dead." "I know," she whispered. "I was a coward. But when I saw you in that church, holding those letters, I realized how wrong we were. You're alive, Ethan. You're stronger than any of us." Her words hit hard, but Ethan wasn't ready to soften. "You don't get to decide I'm strong. You don't get to rewrite the story now." Sarah reached for the notebook, pushing it toward him. "This is yours. I kept it because it was the only piece of you I had left. I read your poems, your thoughts. They made me see how much I failed you." Ethan stared at the notebook, memories flooding back, late nights scribbling his fears, his hopes, his first love. He didn't take it. "I needed you then, Sarah. Not now." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I know. But I'm here now, and I'll keep showing up until you believe me." Lucas touched Ethan's arm, a silent question. Ethan shook his head slightly. He wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. I need time, he said. And I need you to prove it's not just words. Sarah stood, her hands trembling. I will. I promise. She left, the door closing softly behind her. Ethan sank onto the couch, exhausted. Lucas pulled him close. You okay? No, Ethan admitted. But I think I want to be. Over the next week, Ethan threw himself into the community center, finding purpose in helping kids like Jamie. The teens' courage coming out to their parents despite the fear mirrored Ethan's own. When Jamie's parents rejected them, Ethan was there, offering the support he'd never had. Sarah kept her word, sending small gestures, a text about a book they'd loved as kids, a photo of their old dog. Ethan didn't always respond, but he didn't block her either. Each message was a brick rebuilding a bridge he wasn't sure he wanted to cross. The viral video faded from the headlines, but its impact lingered. Ethan's speech at the gala had inspired local queer groups to organize, and he was invited to speak at a rally for LGBTQ+ rights. He hesitated, still uncomfortable with the spotlight. But Lucas pushed him. Your voice matters, he said. Use it. The rally was held in a Charlotte park. Hundreds gathered under a gray sky. Ethan spoke from the heart, sharing his story, his pain, his hope. We don't need their approval, he told the crowd. We need each other. The applause was deafening, but Ethan's eyes found Sarah in the crowd. She held a sign, I'm proud of my brother. His throat tightened. He didn't acknowledge her, but the sign stayed with him. That night, Ethan finally opened the notebook Sarah had left. Its pages were a time capsule, his teenage dreams, his fears of coming out, his love for a boy who'd never noticed him. On the last page, Sarah had written, I'm sorry, Ethan. I see you now. He closed the book, tears blurring his vision. Lucas found him, wrapping him in a hug. You don't have to decide anything tonight, Lucas said. I know, Ethan whispered. But for the first time, he felt a spark of hope, not just for Sarah, but for himself. Winter settled over Charlotte, the air sharp with frost. Ethan's life found a rhythm, volunteering at the community center, speaking at local events, and building a fragile connection with Sarah. Her texts became a daily ritual, small olive branches he didn't always accept but couldn't ignore. One evening, as snow dusted the city, Ethan sat with Lucas on their couch. The notebook opened between them. She wrote in it, Ethan said, showing Lucas the final page. She says she sees me now. Lucas traced the words with his finger. Do you believe her? Ethan sighed. I want to. But it's hard. Every time I think about trusting her, I remember being 19, alone, with nowhere to go. Lucas nodded, his hand finding Ethan's. You don't have to rush. Healing takes time. The community center kept Ethan grounded. Jamie, the trans teen, was staying with a foster family now, and Ethan became their mentor, helping them navigate school and identity. You're like the big brother I never had, Jamie said one day, their smile shy but genuine. The words hit Ethan hard, echoing the bond he'd once had with Sarah. Sarah invited Ethan to meet again, this time at a park where they'd played as kids. Against his better judgment, he agreed. The park was quiet, the swings creaking in the wind. Sarah waited by a bench, bundled in a scarf, her face nervous but hopeful. Thanks for coming, she said as Ethan approached. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't, Ethan admitted, shoving his hands in his pockets. What do you want, Sarah? She took a breath. I want to be your sister again. I know I can't erase the past, but I'm trying to be better. I've been going to therapy, reading about queer issues. I even told Dad I won't go to his church anymore. Ethan's eyebrows rose. You stood up to him. It was time, she said, her voice steady. He's wrong about you. About a lot of things. Ethan wanted to believe her, but the years of hurt held him back. Why now? Why not 5 years ago? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I was scared of losing everything. But losing you was worse. I see that now. They walked through the park. The crunch of snow under their boots the only sound. Sarah talked about her life, her job as a teacher, her struggles with their parents' expectations. Ethan listened, surprised by how much he still cared. He told her about Lucas, about the community center, about the kids like Jamie who gave him purpose. You're doing so much good, Sarah said. I'm proud of you, Ethan. I always was, even when I didn't show it. He stopped walking, his chest tight. I needed you, Sarah. When I was sleeping in my car, when I didn't know if I'd make it. I needed my sister. I know, she whispered. I failed you. But I'm here now, and I'll keep showing up. Ethan didn't respond, but he didn't walk away either. They sat on a bench, watching the snow fall, and for a moment, it felt like they were kids again, before the world tore them apart. Back home, Ethan told Lucas about the meeting. She's trying, he said, but I don't know if I can let her back in. Lucas kissed his forehead. You'll know when you're ready. Trust yourself. The next week, Ethan spoke at another rally, this time with Jamie by his side. The teen's courage inspired him, and he found himself sharing more of his story, his pain, his love, his hope for a better future. The crowd cheered, and Ethan felt a shift. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building something. Sarah was there again, her sign now reading, My brother is my hero. Ethan met her eyes across the crowd, and for the first time, he didn't look away. He didn't approach her, but he felt the walls around his heart crack, just a little. That night, Ethan posted on X, I'm learning to forgive. Not for them, but for me. I'm still here, still growing. The responses were overwhelming, but one stood out, a message from Mia, his high school friend. You're changing lives. Ethan, keep going. As winter deepened, Ethan and Lucas decorated their apartment for Christmas, a small tree glowing in the corner. Ethan found the notebook again, flipping through its pages. He added a new entry. I'm scared to trust again, but I'm trying. For me. Sarah's efforts continued, and Ethan began to reply. Small steps towards something new. He wasn't ready to call it forgiveness, but it was a start, a fragile, hopeful start. Spring brought a thaw to Charlotte, the city blooming with possibility. Ethan's work at the community center grew, his speeches drawing larger crowds. He was becoming a voice for those who'd been silenced, but the spotlight came with pressure. Hate mail arrived alongside support, and Ethan struggled to balance his public role with his private healing. Sarah's presence was steady now, their meetings less tense. They'd grab coffee or walk the park, talking about everything and nothing. She shared stories of her students, her decision to move out of their parents' house. Ethan shared pieces of his life, Lucas's art, Jamie's progress, his own tentative hope. But he kept his guard up, the past a shadow he couldn't outrun. One afternoon, Sarah brought a letter from their mother. She asked me to give this to you, Sarah said, her voice cautious. I haven't read it. Ethan took the letter, his hands unsteady. He didn't open it, shoving it into the envelope with his receipts. I'm not ready, he said. Maybe I never will be. Sarah nodded. That's okay. It's your choice. At home, Ethan showed Lucas the letter. What if it's more of the same? More guilt, more excuses. Lucas sat beside him. You don't have to read it. But if you do, I'm here. Ethan left the letter unopened, but its presence gnawed at him. He threw himself into the community center, organizing a fundraiser for queer youth. Jamie helped, their enthusiasm infectious. "I told my foster parents I want to be an activist like you," Jamie said, grinning. Ethan's heart swelled. He was making a difference, even if his own family remained a wound. The fundraiser was a success, raising enough to fund a new support group. Ethan spoke at the event, his voice stronger now, his story a beacon for others. Sarah was there, her sign a constant, "My brother inspires me." This time, Ethan waved her over afterward. "You keep showing up," he said, his tone softer than before. "I told you I would," Sarah replied. "I mean it, Ethan." He nodded, a lump in his throat. "I'm starting to believe you." That night, Ethan finally opened his mother's letter. Her handwriting was shaky. The words careful. "Ethan, I failed you. I let your father's anger speak for me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying to understand. I love you, even if I don't know how to show it." Ethan's eyes stung. He handed the letter to Lucas, who read it silently. "What do you think?" Lucas asked. "It's something," Ethan said, "but it's not enough." He didn't reply to his mother, but he didn't throw the letter away either. Instead, he added it to the envelope, another piece of his story. Sarah's efforts, his mother's words, the community's support, it was all part of the messy, painful path to healing. The next week, Ethan and Lucas attended a pride event, their hands linked, rainbow flags waving around them. Ethan felt a freedom he hadn't known before, a sense of belonging that outshone his family's rejection. Jamie was there, beaming in a trans flag shirt, and Sarah showed up too, wearing a rainbow pin. "You're here," Ethan said, surprised. Sarah smiled. "I'm learning. I want to be part of your world." For the first time, Ethan hugged her, a brief, cautious embrace. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a step. Lucas squeezed his hand, his smile bright. "You're building something amazing," he said. Ethan looked at the crowd. Jamie, Sarah, Lucas, strangers who'd become family. "Yeah," he said. "I am." He posted on X that night, "Pride isn't just a day. It's every day I choose to live my truth. Thank you to everyone who's with me." The responses were a wave of love, drowning out the hate. Ethan was no longer just surviving, was thriving, one step at a time. Summer arrived, painting Charlotte in vibrant greens and golds. Ethan's life was fuller now, his work at the community center, his growing bond with Sarah, his unshakable love for Lucas. But the past still lingered, a quiet ache beneath the surface. One morning, Ethan received an email from a local journalist wanting to feature his story in a documentary about queer resilience. He hesitated, wary of the spotlight, but Lucas and Jamie urged him on. "Your story saves people," Jamie said, their eyes fierce with conviction. Ethan agreed, and the filming began, retracing his journey from Asheville to Charlotte, from rejection to rebirth. During a break in filming, Ethan visited the park with Sarah. They sat on their old bench, the air warm with possibility. "I told Mom I'm moving to Charlotte," Sarah said. "I want to be closer to you." Ethan's heart skipped. "What about Dad?" Sarah's face hardened. "He's not ready to change. I'm done waiting for him." Ethan nodded, a weight lifting. Sarah's choice was her own, but it felt like a gift, a sign she was choosing him, too. "I'm glad you're here," he said, the words easier now. The documentary aired in August, drawing tears and cheers at a community center screening. Ethan watched himself on screen, his voice steady as he spoke of crashing his own funeral, of finding love, of rebuilding with Sarah. The audience applauded, And Ethan felt a surge of pride not just for himself, but for everyone who'd fought to be seen. After the screening, Ethan's mother called. He let it go to voicemail, his hands shaking. Lucas sat beside him as he played the message. Ethan, I saw the documentary. I'm so sorry for everything. I want to see you, if you'll let me. Ethan's throat tightened. He didn't know if he could face her, but the fact that she'd reached out, that she'd watched his story, meant something. He didn't call back, but he saved the message. Sarah moved to Charlotte that month, renting a small apartment nearby. She joined Ethan at the community center, volunteering with the youth group. Her presence was a bridge, not fully crossed, but stronger every day. One evening, she brought a photo album, pictures of their childhood, moments Ethan had forgotten. I want us to make new memories, she said. Ethan smiled, his heart lighter. We will. The community center threw a celebration for Ethan's 26th birthday, Jamie and Sarah helping Lucas plan. The room was filled with people who'd become his family, queer kids, allies, friends. Lucas gave a toast, his voice thick with emotion. To Ethan, who showed us all what it means to rise. Ethan kissed him, the crowd cheering. Sarah hugged him, her embrace fierce. I love you, she whispered. For the first time in years, Ethan believed her. That night, Ethan wrote in his notebook, I'm not just alive. I'm home. He posted a final update on X, 5 years ago. They buried me. Today, I'm surrounded by love. This is my victory. The responses were overwhelming, but Ethan focused on the moment, Lucas's hand in his, Sarah's laughter, Jamie's grin. His family had declared him dead, but he'd walked into his own funeral and claimed his life. The receipts were no longer just proof of his pain. They were proof of his power. As summer faded, Ethan stood on his balcony, Lucas beside him, the city alive below. He didn't know if he'd ever reconcile with his parents, but he didn't need their approval anymore. He had Lucas, Sarah, Jamie, and a community that saw him. He had himself. And that was enough.